Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Talking Time with Charlie / Learn to Play Piano with Charlie. We'll call it a Learn to Play because it's a little bit about talking and a little bit about learning to play. More specifically, learning to perform. Now, the topic we're going to talk about today is basically learning to peak at the right time. And this is a difficult thing for anyone. I think it applies to not only music, but probably a lot of other things too. Like athletes is a good example of people who have to really perform at their peak at a designated time. And that's no different from musicians in some ways, at least. So let's talk about that. So before we start though, you know what to do. You got to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share, comment, and share all over Facebook because that helps the algorithm and that helps people see these videos. So thanks a lot for your support. Let's get right to it. Now, what do I mean by peaking at the right time? So, when you're performing, usually there is a set date and time. So, you have a concert on Friday night at 7, and maybe you perform at 7:30. So there's a lot of things that have to go into preparing for that, both long-term and short-term. So let's kind of start with the long-term parts, and we'll go into the short-term parts. But what I mean by peaking is you want to play and you want to be in the best condition to play as best you can at the time that you're going to be playing. So that could be a concert, it could be a competition, it could be whatever. But you want to be in tip-top shape in terms of preparation, in terms of how you're feeling, all that kind of stuff. And as many of you will know, it's oftentimes really hard to do that because you can't always be at your peak. You could be, and that applies to almost anything. It's very, very hard, if not probably impossible, for someone to be at their peak all the time. Then they would just be, perfect? I don't know. Maybe not. Anyway, it's hard, if not impossible, to do that. So oftentimes, people will, they'll peak at a certain point and then it'll start to kind of drop off. And then maybe if you have another concert or something you're working for, they'll try to peak and then drop off. And the same probably goes for athletics. As you can tell, I am not an Olympian myself. Contrary to how I may look. I may look like an Olympian athlete, but I'm not. So just know that. But I would assume it's the same. Like if you're preparing for the Olympics, you want to be at your peak at the day and time of your competition. If you peak a month before that and you're kind of, by the time the Olympics come, that's not so good. Same could be the opposite. So for example, if you peak a month after the Olympics end, well, that's not going to do you a whole lot of good. So let's talk about that. So long-term preparations, so taking a step back. Preparing long-term for something is obviously, it's a marathon, not a sprint type of a thing. So, practicing regularly, keeping your fingers going, stuff like that, preparing for the piece, memorizing the piece, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of videos I've talked about this kind of thing on, but basically it's learning the piece, making sure that you can play it, have it memorized, your interpretation is how you want it, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the long-term stuff. But then let's say you're getting a little bit closer. Let's say your concert is a few months out. If it's a piece that you've played a lot, for me, I'll start bringing it back up again a few months maybe before the concert. If it's something I've played a lot before and I'm pretty comfortable with, just to kind of get it back in my fingers, get the memorization back up and things like that. And then, polish it, right? Because you have to polish it, get it as good as you can. Now, how long that takes is probably different for everyone, right? Some people it'll take a much longer time. Some people they can really polish something in maybe, a few days. I don't know. For me, I start working on something that I haven't played in a long time, a few months in advance. If it's a new piece, I want to start working way, way in advance. Ideally, minimum a year for me because especially if it's a long piece and especially if it has like weird notes, because I'm a slow sight reader. And I really want to have time for it to mature. And, a year is not probably enough time for it to really mature. I mean, certain pieces, your interpretation won't mature for years to decades, right? But, I kind of feel good if I can have a minimum of a year, if it's a brand new piece I've never played, especially if it's like a contemporary piece with weird notes and stuff like that. So you want to prepare. If I were to start polishing a piece, so by polishing, getting every little thing quite, right, getting the technique exactly down, everything just, like you're polishing a piece of jewelry or something. If I polish too early, I might peak and then kind of drop off. So for me, it's just important to kind of find that right amount of time that it takes you to peak, and then try to line up that peak with the concert day. So if this is like the horizontal axis, you've got like time, and this is like how prepared you are or whatever. In reality, very few, if any, people will ever be able to be at max the whole time. So you're going to kind of have this kind of a bell curve shape thing, maybe not a bell curve, but a line going down and or going up and then dropping off at a peak. So you want that peak to be lined up as close as you can to the time and date of your concert. Now, short-term stuff is going to be things like how, I don't know, like maybe the week or so before, right? To a week or so to right before the concert or even at the concert. So those are things like, oh, are you sleeping enough, right? Oh, are you, how are you feeling? Are you sick? Are you not sick? Now, oftentimes you don't really have a choice. If you're, I've given concerts sick, where I was feeling lousy, like with the flu or something. And, if you have thousands of people who bought a ticket to come see you, and you have the flu, it's not ideal to cancel. So in those cases, unless it's like, if you can help it, right? I mean, if you had like a serious health problem, then you could and should cancel if it's serious. But like something like the flu or a cold, you're just not in your best tip top of shape. You oftentimes have to power through it. So ideally you're not sick, but sometimes that can't be helped. But ideally you're not sick, you're feeling good, you're eating well, you're sleeping well, things like that. Now, when it comes to like really short term, like the day or two before, that's where it starts getting more and more important for the short term portion of things. So the night before a concert, ideally you get a good night's sleep. For me, I have a kind of a day of the concert routine. I think I've explained it in another video, so check that one out on my channel. But to recap it again, basically what I do is oftentimes I'll have, if it's a recital, for example, I don't have to rehearse with anyone, I'll try to go try the piano out in the morning if I'm already there from the night before. Sometimes I'll arrive that morning for a concert. Then I'll try the piano out in the morning if I can. Then I'll get like a Chipotle or Qdoba if there's one in the area, because I think I like that. Hashtag sponsor me. So I'll get one of those and then I'll bring it back to my hotel and eat it. I'll just gorge on like a huge burrito bowl or something. Noon, 11 o'clock, noonish or something. And then I try to go to sleep. And so I'll try to go to sleep 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon if the concert's at night, and sleep I try to, set as long a time as I can to basically prepare by sleeping. So I'll take a nap for 3-4 hours, like a serious sleep. Then you wake up, and for me at least, I feel like it's almost like a new day. So when I wake up, then I start kind of getting mentally in the zone. So like if the concert's at 7, I'll kind of backwards plan how much time I need. So let's say the concert starts at 7. I need to be there. I try to get to the concert hall as late as possible because there's no sense sitting in a dressing room doing nothing, I think. So if the concert starts at 7, let's say I'm playing right at 7, I'll try to get there 5-10 minutes before, maybe, just as late as I can, especially if it's like across the street. Usually I stay at a hotel that's fairly close to the concert hall. If not, I'll calculate the time it takes to get there. And you start backwards planning. I try to give myself maybe an hour and a half so I can really, at a leisurely pace, get ready, comb my hair, take a shower, all that stuff, get dressed, put my tux on. And so I'll backwards plan. So I might wake up at 5 o'clock or something like that. And when I wake up, I try to kind of be in the zone. I'm not like, I try to get in the zone. If I might have like a half of one of those 5-hour energies or the Costco brand, which I usually have, the Kirkland Signature ones. Half of an extra strength one seems to work pretty good for me. Just kind of get me, like a cup of coffee almost, kind of pepped up a little bit. So I'll get ready, get washed up, dressed up, all that kind of stuff, head to the concert hall and go. And for me, that seems to work pretty well and kind of getting me in the zone because you're fresh then. No one, at least no one that I know of, I think is going to be at their peak having already been up for 12 hours, right? Like if you've woke up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, even if you're having a restful day, if you're not taking a nap or anything, by the time 7 or 8 p.m. rolls around, you're not going to be as wide-eyed and, what's the saying? Wide-eyed and bushy-tailed? I don't know, there's some saying like that. as if as you were maybe earlier in the day. So that's why a nap for me seems to work really well, because it's almost like I've slept overnight because it's such a long nap. And so I wake up and it almost feels like a new day. So I just feel more with it. And also it psychologically kind of separates, the performing time with the normal lifetime. I guess is one way you could put it. Anyway, so that for me works to help try to get me, at least on the short term, peaked at the right time. If I didn't take a nap and I woke up earlier in the day, by the time nighttime rolled around, I'd probably be a little bit more tired, especially because I'm more of a morning person than a night person. I don't stay up really late at night. I go to bed really early and wake up fairly early too. So for me, that seems to work. Again, it might differ for other people, but the main conclusion, though, is that your goal is to get your peak, both long-term and short-term, because there might be little peaks up and down. It's not a smooth line necessarily. You want the overall, in the big scheme of things, you want your peak to be at the concerts. And in the short term, if you were to zoom up, you want the peak of the day or the peak of the week or whatever, or both, to basically peak at the concert and the concert time too. So there's a lot to kind of think about in that sense, but I think it can be really helpful to do that because, I think that a lot of performing is psychological. Preparing is very important and stuff, but there's a lot of leeway and variance in how you can perform on a particular day. I think just based on how you're feeling physically and mentally that day. If you're really sad and you're really in a bad mood and you're tired and grouchy and groggy, you probably aren't going to play as well as if you're in a good mood, you're feeling good mentally, you're feeling good physically, you're feeling awake, you're just, clear-headed. I think that's probably more conducive to a better concert and a better performance than if you're not. Just like, almost anything, right? Like if you go to work and you're feeling lousy and stuff, you're probably not going to be as productive as if you're feeling good. And it's the same kind of a thing, I think, in a lot of ways. So I hope that kind of gives a little bit of a background on, the idea of peaking at the right time for a performance and some methods that I use to do that. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, share on Facebook, all that stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.